After 5 years of long distance, I returned home, overjoyed to be getting married. Instead, I caught my fiancé walking hand in hand with his assistant into a hotel. Soon after, Brandon Sterling called me, his voice ragged. "Livy, is it okay if we postpone the wedding for a few days? I'm very busy right now, having an in-depth discussion with an important client." "Okay." The next second, Tiffany sent me photos of her and Brandon Sterling, showcasing their intimacy in various locations. She didn't forget to add a taunt. "Old classmate, it's been years. I've got my eye on your fiancé. No need for you to step aside, I'll just take him myself." Without crying or making a scene, I immediately called Grandfather Arthur. Grandfather Arthur sounded a bit helpless. "Sweetheart, I already agreed to you marrying that illegitimate son from the Sterling family, the one who hides in the shadows. What are you threatening me with death for now? I want a different fiancé. How about Brandon Sterling's brother?" That evening, by the time Brandon Sterling arrived, my welcome party/dinner was already nearing its end. Casually, he pulled out a cheap ring he'd bought on the fly at a discount store and slipped it onto my finger. Patting my head like he used to when we were kids, he coaxed, "Our Livy loves rubies the most." I scoffed inwardly. Just 3 days ago, he had spent a fortune at an auction on a one-of-a-kind pigeon-blood red ruby ring. He even flaunted their affection in front of everyone, claiming it was a token of love for the woman he loved most. Later, that ring appeared on Tiffany's hand. A flicker of cold mockery crossed my eyes as I watched Brandon Sterling and his buddies put on a show for me. They praised me, speaking amongst themselves in a way I didn't understand, saying I was gentle and sensible, someone you'd want to settle down with. Brandon Sterling nodded repeatedly, thoughtfully taking off his suit jacket and draping it over my shoulders. Then he joked with the others, "No matter how great a woman is, 10 years is long enough for me. Heirs like us, who doesn't have a few mistresses on the side?" The others clapped in agreement. Brandon's right. As long as you hide it well enough, Olivia will never find out. With that, everyone burst into laughter. Only I couldn't laugh. Brandon Sterling thought I was feeling unwell and offered to have a driver take me to the hospital. But he didn't know that years ago, while caring for his mother when she was in the hospital, I had already learned their local accent. I pulled Brandon Sterling's hand away and took a taxi home by myself. The house we planned to share, prepared 5 years ago, wouldn't open when I inserted the key. I went back to look for Brandon Sterling. Just as I reached the venue entrance, I saw Brandon Sterling holding a charming woman, kissing passionately in the lobby. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, unable to speak or move. Someone in the crowd called out a warning. "Brandon, trouble! Olivia's here." Brandon Sterling froze for a second, then let go of Tiffany and smiled faintly at me. "Livy, we were just playing truth or dare. You don't mind, right?" Before I could reply, Tiffany, after fixing her smudged lipstick, stepped forward to reminisce with me. "Oh, it's Olivia Montgomery. We were such good friends back in school. You often helped me out, and you even kissed a street thug to save me, almost losing your virginity that time. Livy, why did you never mention this to me?" A flicker of disgust crossed Brandon Sterling's eyes, but because of our engagement, he didn't find it convenient to press the matter further. "Tiffany must have helped resolve it in the end, right? I never would have guessed you two were such good friends." "Well, that makes things easier for the future." This meeting was the first time I had faced Tiffany directly after so many years. The fear and dread of the past had slowly faded with age and experience, but the pain in my heart still lingered. Being subjected to malicious rumors in front of the whole school, being dragged into the boys' restroom, slapped and kicked, and subjected to horrific humiliation and physical abuse. Also, while I was taking a nap, using pruning shears from outside to chop off the long hair I'd been growing for so long. I hadn't even recovered from the shock of what had just happened when Brandon Sterling pulled up in his car, waiting on the roadside, ready to head home. Laughably, Tiffany acted more like his fiancée than I did, casually bending down and sliding into the passenger seat. "Olivia, I get carsick, you know." "What do you mean? You're coming with us? It doesn't seem like we're going the same way, does it?" Seeing Tiffany's sly smiling face, the scars on my body throbbed faintly, and a surge of unidentifiable anger rose in my heart. My words were naturally sharper. Unexpectedly, I was scolded by Brandon Sterling for it. Why are you being so petty? Tiffany isn't going anywhere else. She's coming home with us. She's my assistant now, and it's obviously more convenient for her to stay at my place. I stood rooted to the spot, thinking I must have misheard. Tiffany, as always, put on a show of innocent vulnerability, her eyes red as she tearfully complained to Brandon Sterling. I'm sorry, it's all my fault for taking the spot that should belong to Olivia. I'll just go sit in the back. Even if I get dizzy and feel like throwing up later, I'll endure it. Her tears hit Brandon Sterling's heart drop by drop, making the man in front of me frown in distress. He then turned his anger towards me. Enough, Olivia Montgomery. How did you become so unreasonable? It's just a seat, isn't it? The back is wide enough. Surely it can accommodate your highness, right? I'll give you two choices, either sit in the back, or take a taxi home by yourself. Fine. Suppressing my humiliation, I conceded. Just as I reach Ed for the back door, Brandon Sterling slammed the accelerator and sped away. The inertia threw me off balance, and I fell hard to the ground, a searing pain instantly shooting up my calf. I looked down and saw a large patch of skin scraped off my knee, bright red blood steadily oozing out. Everything felt as unexpected as Brandon Sterling's ruthlessness. I had left in a hurry and hadn't brought my phone or wallet, so I could only limp back home. Before I knew it, a heavy rain began to fall. I didn't feel it at all, my mind filled only with the happy moments Brandon Sterling and I had shared in the past. We had known each other for almost 20 years. The first time we met was at a charity gala hosted by the Sterling family, where Brandon Sterling was punished by being made to stand facing the wall for something he'd done wrong. Because of his illegitimate status, hidden from view, anyone among the guests felt they could spit on him and call him a little bastard. Only I, ignoring my family's objections, walked resolutely over, took his hand, and stood up for him in front of everyone. The grudges between adults shouldn't involve children. If anyone ever dares to bully him again, I'll make sure Grandfather Arthur stops doing business with their family's company. From then on, I became a ray of light in Brandon Sterling's life. But as time passed and he grew into a man, he indulged in playing the field and completely forgot the promises he had made to me. Actually, while I was overseas taking over the family business, I had heard various rumors about his affairs. I thought they were just momentary indiscretions. But I never expected him to get involved with the woman who had once nearly driven me to my death. This was undoubtedly rubbing salt in my wounds. After a long, difficult walk home, it was already 1 in the morning. Brandon Sterling and Tiffany had already showered and were sitting on the sofa, radiating warmth, watching TV. The large living room reeked of a pungent, cloying smell. Next to the trash can lay piles of discarded used condoms. I knew exactly what they had been doing in that room. However, the more I showed I cared, the deeper the smile in Tiffany's eyes became. She yawned leisurely, instinctively leaning closer to Brandon Sterling, and casually rested her hand on his inner thigh, that highly sensitive spot. Brandon Sterling immediately reacted, subtly signaling her to go back to the room and wait. Finally, only Brandon Sterling and I were left in the living room. As the old saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I had been looking forward to this day for a long time. Before returning home, I had even spent a considerable amount on several sets of lingerie. Knowing Brandon Sterling liked that sort of thing, I used to humble myself to please him. Now, it seemed there was no need. Aren't you going to explain why Tiffany has moved into the house we planned to share, and even changed the locks? If I had come back just 1 day later, would you have even changed the person you sleep with? Livy, you're overthinking this. I already explained to you, Tiffany is my assistant, and it's unavoidable that she handles some of my personal matters. Plus, she's short on money and can't pay her rent, so I took pity on her and let her stay at my place temporarily. Can you please stop being so unreasonable? It's simply inappropriate for you two to be living under the same roof, alone. I sniffled, my nose stinging, and was about to sit down and apply medicine to my injured leg. But inadvertently, I hooked a sexy lace thong out from the gap in the sofa cushions. Seeing this, Brandon Sterling's face turned pale. He quickly came up with an incredibly clumsy lie to fob me off. This was a gift I got for you. I just forgot to put it away. I sneered inwardly. Are you sure? Because this has clearly been worn. It seems your little assistant has a habit of sticky fingers, or war. SE. You should probably fire her sooner rather than later. Tiffany had been eavesdropping on our conversation. Hearing this, she ran out crying and threw herself into Brandon Sterling's arms. Mr. Sterling, I know Olivia doesn't like me, but she can't just humiliate me like this, can she? Let alone a pair of underwear, you wouldn't even bat an eye at giving me the entire building. Shh, don't talk nonsense. A flicker of panic crossed Brandon Sterling's eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by concern. Tiffany clung to his waist, crying incessantly. Helpless, he told me to apologize to Tiffany. Livy, you've gone too far this time. Apologize to Tiffany immediately. I was so angry I laughed, though tears rolled down my face involuntarily. I immediately lifted my clothes, revealing the numerous scars all over my body, and showed them to Brandon Sterling. You used to ask me why my nearly perfect body was covered in these ugly, unsightly scars. Today, I'll tell you the truth. It was her, the little mistress you brought home. She cornered me in the restroom and scalded me with boiling water. I told you before that someone was bullying me, but you never took it seriously, you even called me dramatic. Now, you've shamelessly brought the perpetrator home and put her in our bed. Brandon Sterling, did you ever truly love me? Brandon Sterling said nothing, simply focusing on comforting the frightened young woman in his arms. Tiffany leaned limply against him, clutching his shirt collar tightly. Mr. Sterling, I didn't do it. Olivia is making this up to frame me. You have to believe me. Brandon Sterling's heart was practically breaking from her tears. How could he not believe her? Enough. This is over. Livy, really, since the scars have healed, does it matter who caused them? You shouldn't keep showing them off for sympathy. To be honest, those scars are quite ugly, and they're an eyesore. Brandon Sterling had finally spoken his mind. The person I had once loved so deeply had now become someone he found irritating to even look at. This ruined, irreparable relationship, I thought, it was time to end it. I wiped away my tears, preparing to leave. As I walked past Tiffany, she suddenly lost her footing and fell to the ground. Then, she knelt there, putting on a pathetic show and accusing me. Olivia, why did you push me? I'm pregnant with Mr. Sterling's baby. Can't you be a little more generous? Show me some grace for Mr. Sterling's sake. Hearing this, Brandon Sterling was so happy he was almost in tears. He scooped Tiffany up in a bridal carry and spun her around in front of me, repeatedly shouting, "This is great. I'm going to be a dad." Before they had even been happy for 2 minutes, Tiffany clutched her stomach and cried out in pain, "Brandon, will our baby be okay? Even if we lose it, please don't blame Olivia. I actually just lost my own footing, it had nothing to do with her." Brandon Sterling went frantic and rushed her to the hospital. Before leaving, he glared at me fiercely, "Olivia Montgomery, you'd better pray Tiffany and her baby are okay. Otherwise, I'll keep postponing the wedding indefinitely. You can forget about ever being my bride." I watched them leave with cold eyes. Checking my phone, I saw Grandfather Arthur was already calling, urging me. The Sterling family heir was returning home in 3 days and would take over all the Sterling family's assets at that time. Grandfather Arthur, usually so stern, was beaming with joy at that moment, giving me a thumbs up on the video call. Truly a daughter of the Montgomery family. You might be willful sometimes, but you're very sensible/level-headed when it counts. Grandfather Arthur assured you confidently, David Sterling is absolutely tens of thousands of times better than that illegitimate son from the Sterling family. Okay, I'll make sure I look my best then, and don't disgrace the Montgomery family. After hanging up, start packing my luggage, only to find that all the clothes and jewelry I had bought previously had been taken by Tiffany. While I was still angry, Brandon Sterling called me out of the blue, and he sounded quite anxious. Livy, I remember you have a lucky heirloom pendant, right? Yes, why? On the other end, Brandon Sterling immediately burst out laughing, even stamping his foot in excitement. Great! Hurry and bring the heirloom pendant to the hospital for Tiffany to wear. Her and the baby's safety depend on you. Absolutely not. That's the most precious gift my mother left me. I refused immediately, almost without thinking. I was frail and sickly when I was young, and my mother was still worried about me the day before she passed away. So, dragging her gravely ill body, she went to the most famous historic chapel in the mountains nearby and made a pilgrimage and prayed sincerely to get this heirloom pendant. From childhood, I had always treasured it. Now, Brandon Sterling was demanding it from me, wanting to take it to protect Tiffany's pregnancy. How could I not feel heartbroken? In my ear, the man's endless curses continued. Olivia Montgomery, you can be willful, but know the time and place. Tiffany's fall is linked to you. Is it too much to ask for one heirloom pendant as compensation? If you don't give it to me, don't blame me for sending someone to seize it. I felt uneasy, knowing Brandon Sterling always followed through on his threats. 10 minutes later, several burly men surrounded my doorstep, broke down the door in a few swift moves, and roughly snatched the heirloom pendant from me. Before leaving, they put their hands on me, trying to strip my clothes under the pretense of searching. If I hadn't fought desperately to get to the kitchen and grabbed a kitchen knife, swinging it wildly at them, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Shortly after those bastards left, Tiffany sent me a video of her fiddling with the heirloom pendant in her hand. In the video, Brandon Sterling was feeding her porridge, caring for her so carefully with eyes full of love, an expression I had never received a shred of. Immediately after, Tiffany called me directly to provoke me. Olivia Montgomery, now you must know how much Brandon Sterling loves me, right? While you were gone for 5 years, I was with him every day. In that room, we tried over 100 different positions. Brandon said that because of our engagement, he had wanted to dump you ages ago. But I have my ways. If you want to marry Brandon Sterling, you can wait until your next life. The moment she finished speaking, I felt as if a spell had been cast on me. I was suddenly choked by a strong smell, losing strength throughout my body, even experiencing ringing in my ears and unable to stand steady. Tiffany's laughter on the other end grew increasingly wild. Are you finding it hard to breathe now, feeling dizzy and lightheaded? That was indeed the case. I barely had the strength to speak, forcing out my question with my last breath. What exactly are you doing to me? Ha ha ha. Didn't someone just come to see you? I gave them some money and told them to turn on the gas and lock all the doors and windows. Only then could you die a little faster. Realizing I had fallen into Tiffany's trap, I struggled to crawl towards the balcony and called Brandon Sterling for help. Brandon, help me. I have carbon monoxide poisoning, I can't hold on much longer. Brandon Sterling chuckled dismissively when he heard this. Olivia Montgomery, are you ever going to stop? This little trick won't fool me. I'm with Tiffany at the hospital right now and can't leave. If you really die, I'll arrange your burial. Otherwise, stop bothering me. 3 days later, I recovered and was discharged from the hospital. Ji Yanzhou, meanwhile, attended the Sterling family dinner high-profilely with Tiffany. Their intimate behavior made it seem like they were heading to a wedding. Seeing me in the crowd, Brandon Sterling, his face full of rage, pulled me into a corner. Words of rebuke rained down on me. How dare you come here and cause trouble on such an important occasion? Believe it or not, I'll cancel our engagement right now. That would be for the best. Brandon Sterling was taken aback by my decisive answer. In the past, if he had even hinted at postponing the wedding, I would have cried and begged him not to leave me. But now, I no longer cared. Noticing that I was wearing the moon-white, waist-cinching cheapao I had prepared long ago, a mocking smile played on Brandon Sterling's lips. Didn't you save this dress to wear on our engagement day? It's still early, why are you wearing it out and parading around in front of everyone? Are you perhaps trying to force me to marry you? Olivia Montgomery, I know you dream of marrying me, but you don't have to be this desperate, do you? A woman who throws herself at a man just makes herself seem cheap, completely worthless. I shook my head, took out a wedding invitation, and handed it to him. The person I'm marrying isn't you. It's the Sterling family's only legitimate heir. After seeing David Sterling written in large gold lettering in the groom's section, a flicker of mockery appeared in Brandon Sterling's eyes. Are you kidding me? Following that was Tiffany's clear, sharp sneer. Olivia, you weren't made stupid by the carbon monoxide poisoning last time, were you? Everyone knows David Sterling isn't interested in women. Years ago, he publicly stated he has no intention of ever marrying or having children. If you want to get Brandon's attention, at least use your brain and pick someone else. I ignored them, busy replying to David Sterling's message. Outsiders rumored that the Sterling family's eldest grandson was cold and aloof. But ever since our engagement was confirmed, David Sterling would send me good morning and good night messages punctually every day. He also thoughtfully sent many items for the upcoming wedding. Among them, over 30 property deeds were already in my name, and half of his company shares belonged to me. Most importantly, if he hadn't rushed to save me last time, I wouldn't have seen the light of day. Thinking of all this, I suddenly felt full of anticipation for my life after marriage. Tiffany thought she had one, and the smile on her lips never faded. At that moment, she stroked her visibly pregnant belly and spoke to Brandon Sterling in a cutesy voice, leaning against him. Brandon, didn't you say you were going to take me and the Sterling family elders? Our baby is very smart. I heard it's going to be acknowledged by the family, and it's been kicking up a storm in my belly ever since. Really? Let me listen. Brandon Sterling immediately bent down, cupped Tiffany's belly, and kissed it repeatedly. I couldn't bear to watch and turned to leave. But Brandon Sterling grabbed me back and handed me a written agreement. Since you're here, sign the written agreement. If you want to marry me, you must accept Tiffany and the child's existence. I'll keep my promise to give you a wedding, but getting a marriage license at the courthouse is out of the question. The child will need to be registered after birth, and it's more reasonable for Tiffany and I to get a marriage license at the courthouse. I was so angered I laughed. I crumpled the agreement in my hand, tore it to shreds, and threw it in his face. Get lost! Don't make me late for my engagement party. Brandon Sterling scoffed from behind me. Olivia Montgomery, are you out of your mind? I haven't even agreed to marry you. What kind of engagement party are you attending? Soon the banquet began. Brandon Sterling kept putting food on Tiffany's plate at the table. Tiffany, having never seen such a lavish event, accidentally spilled soup on her dress. Brandon Sterling immediately ordered me to take off my cheapao and give tea to Tiffany to wear. Unexpectedly, this action of his reached Grandfather Arthur's ears. Instantly, cutlery clattered to the floor. Grandfather Arthur pointed at him and swore loudly, "You rebellious son. This is Olivia's first day formally joining our family, and you dare to cause trouble, even yelling at her? Do you believe I'll skin you alive? And you, the disreputable woman you brought from outside, you'd better behave yourself. Butler, have someone freeze his bank accounts. As long as I don't say otherwise, no one is to give him any money." Tiffany's face turned ashen with fright. She wanted to cry but didn't dare. Brandon Sterling's eyes were red with distress for her. He could only vent all his anger on me. Seeing the long string of furious texts he sent, "Olivia Montgomery, you're quite something. You've won over Grandfather Arthur's heart so quickly. But you'd better understand, the person you're marrying is me. Only if I'm in Grandfather Arthur's good graces will you have a good life after marriage." I immediately retorted, "Did I ever say I had to marry you? How ridiculous! Who gave you the nerve to think I'd choose an illegitimate son who hides in the shadows to spend the rest of my life with? If you don't have a mirror, perhaps look in the boys' restroom, you conceited idiot." Less than 3 seconds after I sent the message, Brandon Sterling's face went from red to white, then slowly turned black. He hated being called an illegitimate son more than anything in his life. Now, even I was using that stain to insult him. His fragile ego wounded, he deliberately praised how gentle Tiffany was in front of everyone, saying she was much more suitable to marry into the Sterling family than I was. He even spouted nonsense in front of Grandfather Arthur. "Grandfather, Tiffany is pregnant with my child now, and she will definitely give birth to the Sterling family's first great-grandson. No matter how strong Olivia Montgomery's background is, her BLY can't be as promising as Tiffany's. Maybe Olivia Montgomery is just a hen that can't lay eggs. The Sterling family doesn't need a wife like that, right?" I was about to roll my eyes at him when I felt a gentle, comforting hand on my waist. David Sterling had sat down beside me at some point, thoughtfully peeling an entire plate of shrimp for me and calmly feeding them to my mouth. He then cast a slightly darkened look at Brandon Sterling. "Who do you think you are, daring to publicly criticize my fiancé?" For a moment, Brandon Sterling was dumbfounded, pointing at David Sterling and me, speechless for a long time. "You, and him? You're getting married? How is that possible? Today is Olivia and my engagement party. If you know what's good for you, you'll get as far away as possible." David Sterling declared his claim calmly. Seeing that David Sterling and I had developed a good relationship, Grandfather Arthur's eyes welled up instinctively. Our David has finally met a girl he likes. Even if this old man were to be buried now, I could rest in peace. Everyone at the table watched David Sterling and me with congratulatory looks, except for Brandon Sterling, who was still lost in the illusion that I was desperately chasing him. Ignoring the Sterling family elders, he suddenly chugged an entire bottle of red wine for courage and walked up to me, demanding an explanation. "Olivia Montgomery, you were clearly my fiancée. I hadn't let go yet. How could you sneak around and hook up with another man? Especially David Sterling, who always outdoes me in every way." "Don't put it so harshly. We ended our engagement long ago. I'm just normally getting married. What does it have to do with you?" Brandon Sterling's face turned green with rage. Completely disregarding the setting, he flipped the table and started acting out drunkenly. "David Sterling, aren't you better than me at everything? You took over the entire Sterling family while you were still young, not leaving me any family fortune. I'm really baffled. What kind of woman can't you find, that you have to pick up my leftovers? Olivia Montgomery was with me for 10 years, she's hardly some pure virgin. Are you really not bothered by that?" My heart sank. I hadn't expected Brandon Sterling to be this despicable, actually bringing up my reputation in front of everyone. In that instant, the entire banquet hall fell silent. I didn't dare look into David Sterling's eyes, only lowering my head and explaining softly, "If you mind my past, I won't bother you. Let's just end it here today. I'll leave now." After speaking, I stood up awkwardly, forgetting I was wearing a cheapao and couldn't take large steps. I nearly stumbled and fell. Thankfully, David Sterling caught me just in time, pulling me into his embrace. He gently wiped my damp eyes, his words unforgettable. "The person I want to marry, now and always, is you. I can't change your past, but I will absolutely be with you for your future. Shoo, dry your tears. You'll be my bride tomorrow. We don't want swollen eyes that are hard to put makeup on." Saying this, he took out a diamond ring sparkling with dazzling light and placed it on my ring finger with a look of devotion. "So, it's settled, okay? In this life, you can only marry me. No backing out." I nodded repeatedly, deeply moved. In that moment, Brandon Sterling completely panicked. After finishing our wedding photos that afternoon, David Sterling took me home. We lingered by the door for a while, reluctant to part. Only after David Sterling had left did Brandon Sterling quietly appear behind me, holding a large bouquet of roses. "What are you doing here?" The look in my eyes towards him was devoid of love, replaced only by deep disgust. Brandon Sterling didn't seem to notice at all. He just thought I was throwing a tantrum because he hadn't come to save me a few days ago, and that I deliberately sought out David Sterling to put on AS. How for him? "Livy, please stop acting out, okay? I know I was wrong. David Sterling doesn't love you at all. He just wants to take everything that belongs to me. Even if you want to punish me, you don't have to tie yourself to a cunning and scheming person like David Sterling. It hurts me to see you do that." Feeling a surge of anger, I took the flowers from his arms and threw them at him, hitting him square in the face. "I'm warning you, watch your mouth. David Sterling is my man now. If you dare to slander him again, I won't just be hitting your face." The rose thorns were sharp and instantly drew blood, leaving Brandon Sterling's face streaked with it. But he still wouldn't give up. He held my hand tightly, his eyes red, demanding, "You say he's your man, then what about me? Where do I stand? We were childhood sweethearts, grew up together. Your birthday wish every year was to be my bride when you grew up. Do none of those things count anymore?" "Yes." I nodded calmly, the moment you slept with Tiffany, the Olivia Montgomery who loved you with all her heart and soul died. Brandon Sterling's brows furrowed, and he sighed involuntarily. Livy, I know you yearn for faithful love, but my relationship with Tiffany is complicated. Sometimes, I even see her as you. Stop talking. Suppressing my nausea, I cut him off, impatience etched across my face. Brandon Sterling, however, seemed to have hit a nerve and began to complain about me incessantly. Livy, are you saying you bear absolutely no responsibility for why I cheated? He made me laugh. I raised an eyebrow and leisurely asked, what makes you say that? Brandon Sterling clenched his fists, looking at me with dissatisfaction. If you hadn't ignored my objections back then, stubbornly run off overseas to take over the family business, and been gone for 5 whole years, I wouldn't have gotten lonely and gone looking for other women to entertain myself. Listening to his hypocritical excuse, I suddenly burst into laughter, feeling worthless for having wasted so many years of genuine affection on him. Brandon Sterling, I truly regret it. I should have just stood by and never met you. Do you think I had a carefree time overseas for those 5 years? You're completely wrong. To persuade grandfather Arthur and get him to agree to our marriage, I had to throw myself desperately into work, striving to meet all his expectations. I flew to 5 countries in 3 days, negotiating deals like mad, often skipping meals, which led to stomach problems that had me writhing in pain in bed at night. Originally, he had given me a shortcut. All I had to do was find a capable husband to help me manage the company, and I wouldn't have had to push myself so hard. But for you, I refused to attend all matchmaking events, and even attempted suicide 5 times. But in the end, what did I get? Your betrayal? Or the humiliation after Tiffany took my place? Brandon Sterling finally came to his senses, realizing how much I had silently sacrificed alone to persuade grandfather Arthur to accept him. With that, he shed tears of regret. He even knelt down in front of all the passers-by, just to beg for my forgiveness. I'm sorry, Livy. I realized it too late. Luckily, it's not too late. As long as you don't marry David Sterling tomorrow, I swear to you, I will never betray you again. I'll give Tiffany a sum of money, make her get an abortion, and completely cut ties with her. By then, can you forgive me? No, I turned away resolutely, leaving him alone outside the door. Not long after, extreme weather hit. Ping-pong ball-sized hail pounded down from the sky. I thought Brandon Sterling would surely leave then. But unexpectedly, when I drew back the curtain, I found him still kneeling there, unwavering, despite already being bruised and swollen. But what use was this love that arrived too late? I drew the curtains and changed into the pure white mermaid wedding dress David Sterling had specially sent someone to deliver. Both the fabric and the style were exactly what I had loved deep down. It turned out, he was the one who understood me best. The next day was sunny and beautiful. David Sterling and I held our wedding on a luxury yacht. All the guests who came to congratulate us were influential figures from the city. Grandfather Arthur was so happy he drank 2 rounds of celebratory wine. The worries that had troubled him before vanished completely in that moment. The wedding reached its final item, the exchange of rings between the bride and groom. Just as I was about to place the wedding ring on David Sterling's finger, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted loudly, "Oh no! Someone's fallen into the water. Quick, help!" Everyone looked out and indeed saw someone thrashing in the sea, struggling. The crowd surged forward. David Sterling held me tightly in his arms, calmly standing on the stage and directing the guests away from the railing. Only after the person was pulled out did we realize it wasn't someone who had fallen in, but Brandon Sterling, swimming desperately from the opposite shore. His purpose was to stop me from marrying David Sterling. He had swallowed several mouthfuls of seawater from exhaustion. Now, he lay sprawled on the deck, his eyes full of weariness and despair. But upon seeing me standing on the second deck of the yacht, wearing a pure white wedding dress, his eyes filled with tears of excitement. He stumbled and crawled towards me, determined to reach my side. "Livy, you're so beautiful today. Whether you believe it or not, I have to tell you, the bride in my dreams looked exactly like you do now." His voice grew choked. He pulled a shirt button from his pocket. "Do you remember? This was a shirt button you gave me once, the one closest to the heart. You said as long as I had it with me, no matter how far apart we were, our hearts would always be connected. And our most beautiful. Our first kiss, yes, your first kiss was mine. Your first time was also given to me without reservation on my 20th birthday. We were once the most intimate lovers. You said you'd never leave me, that you'd stay by my side forever. Just because I made a mistake in a moment of impulse, are you going to break your promise? I listened quietly until he finished, my heart unmoved. Then, in front of everyone, I put the wedding ring I hadn't yet given to David Sterling back on his finger. See? I'm David Sterling's wife now. In terms of character and appearance, you are far beneath him. I won't be blind enough to choose you again. You should just give up. Brandon Sterling was completely disheartened. Before he completely passed out, his hand was still clinging reluctantly to the hem of my wedding dress, murmuring, "You really won't take me back?" My answer was much more decisive than his. Never! After that day, Brandon Sterling fell seriously ill. He went on a hunger strike for 3 days in the hospital, just to see me. But David Sterling and I were already on a plane heading to Bali for our honeymoon. I heard that Tiffany, fearing he would die young, rushed to him that very night to demand future child support. In a fit of rage, Brandon Sterling hired someone to tie Tiffany to an operating table in the adjacent obstetrics and gynecology ward. The child was aborted on the spot, and due to improper surgical procedure, Tiffany suffered a severe infection in her lower body and was diagnosed with lifelong infertility. Later, the matter escalated. Tiffany's family, furious, went to the hospital and kidnapped Brandon Sterling, forcing him to be responsible for Tiffany's future, threatening to cripple him otherwise. Brandon Sterling was very afraid of death. Although he had long lost all feeling for Tiffany, the moment the knife was at his throat, he compromised. However, their wedding was extremely simple. They merely got a marriage license at the courthouse. And didn't even hold a reception. This utterly humiliated Tiffany in front of her relatives, who had finally managed to marry into a wealthy family. She was in tears constantly because of it, crying so much that Brandon Sterling became completely exasperated. Eventually, they constantly fought and became physically violent whenever they disagreed, accidentally smashing grandfather Arthur's most cherished antique vase, and were both kicked out of the house. Tiffany gradually found Brandon Sterling useless and began openly cheating on him, even brought her lovers home. This was unfortunately witnessed by Brandon Sterling, who suddenly returned. Furious, he lost control and severely injured both of them. Tiffany, in particular, broke a leg on the spot and would have to live the rest of her life using a crutch. The day Brandon Sterling was released from prison coincided with grandfather Arthur's 80th birthday celebration. At that time, I was wearing a loose cotton dress, visibly pregnant, and radiated a gentle maternal glow. Brandon Sterling was so captivated he forgot himself for a moment. He cornered me in a quiet corner of the garden while David Sterling was cooking for me in the kitchen. "Livy, you're pregnant. That's wonderful." I didn't give him a pleasant look, merely warning him coldly, "My husband is right over there. If you dare lay a finger on me, he will absolutely not let you off lightly." Brandon Sterling sighed softly, "Don't misunderstand. I'm just very envious of David Sterling. If I hadn't been so foolish and done those things that hurt you, perhaps the child you're carrying now would be mine." After a moment of melancholy, he took out the heirloom pendant he had once snatched from my hand from his pocket. "Here, this is for you. I hope you and the baby will be safe and sound." I accepted it calmly, saying nothing more. This was originally mine, now it was simply being returned to its rightful owner. Finally, Brandon Sterling still didn't want to give up, pleading with me in a voice as humble as dust, "Livy, if one day David Sterling treats you poorly, will you look back at me? I'll always be here, waiting for you." I covered my mouth and smiled, "Stop dreaming. My husband treats me wonderfully, and we only have eyes for each other." Brandon Sterling closed his eyes in pain, 2 lines of tears streaming down his face. "I wish you both happiness. You don't need to. As long as you don't appear in front of me again, I'll be very happy every single day." "Okay, I promise. This is the only thing I can do for you now." My gaze went past him, looking straight ahead. David Sterling was waving at me, his eyes full of gentle smiles. Sweetheart, come try the chicken soup I made. It's your favorite. I replied sweetly, okay. In that moment, the sky was a soft, glazed color. The brilliant sunset cast our shadows onto the wall behind us, a pair, together. It was perfect.